Thanks for joining me as we take a trip to Phuket, Thailand for this episode of Should Have Listened to My Mother. I have never been, but my guest, Josh O'Neill, who is a certified green project manager and founder of the Litter Club, is joining us. Josh grew up on a farm in New Zealand and now resides by the sea. While in Southeast Asia, my guest has initiated and managed successful environmental restoration and waste management programs in Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore. His mom, Pattie, who has since passed, had a wonderful sense of humor. She taught him to sew, cook, play card games, knit, tend to the animals, and so much more. And Josh is convinced that she's still sending him messages in very humorous ways to this day. Formerly known as Patricia, she was active in the Land Army in World War II in New Zealand, and there are many more stories to hear. Josh O'Neill, hello. How is Thailand?
Hi, Jackie. Look, I'm fantastic and welcome to paradise. I know you've never been, but the invitation is here for you to join me anytime. If you want to spend some time on a beautiful beach, meet some incredible people, and have some really great fun, this is the place to be.
Okay. It's on my list. All of the area of Southeast Asia, absolutely. Not only for the beauty and the beaches. I love to swim and very active in the sea, and we're going to talk about all that you do to clean things up in the sea for the world. But the culture is also very important to me too. So here we are. We are going to find out about this wonderful woman that had a great sense of humor that meant the world to you, and you had an important conversation with her prior to her passing at 22. But take me back to life on a farm as a child in New Zealand.
Wow. Okay. Thanks so much, Jackie. Look, I was the last of 4 children, and there was 9 years between me and my next sister. We all attended
Wait, you just
boarding
said
school.
9 years.
9 years.
Wow.
And my elder sister, there's like 16 years.
Mhm.
So, really, we all attended boarding school. So by the time we were 12 or 13, we were shipped off to boarding school and,
Wow.
seen very rarely. So kind of by the time I was, 3, 4, 5 years old, I was an only child growing up on a farm with older parents. My dad was 44. My mum was 38 when she had me. In fact, I think I was a mistake, obviously. But
never a mistake. A
there was
surprise, but never a mistake.
There was an amazing story where my mum went to the local show, the local fair or jamboree, and it was the middle of summer, and she was wearing a fur coat so that she could hide the bump. And I was born in January, so I was probably a pretty big bump by that time. But it was, those were conservative days in a conservative country, and she was an older woman. And, I do tell a joke, and I hope it's okay that I tell you, because I always said to my father, why worry my mother when she's, already 38? I said, I was never a sparkle in your eye. I was just a hole in your rubber. And, growing up on a farm, sorry, Jackie, growing up on a farm, we should know that rubber perishes, right? But look, I was a joy to both my mother and father at times. But yeah, so growing up on a farm pretty much by myself and, very rural back in those days. But it was a joy. We had a loving, caring family. Both my mother and my father taught me so much life skills. And I'm forever in their debt for doing that, especially my mum. I was a mama's boy. Yeah.
That's okay, but she was probably so much more relaxed with you raising you than raising the older siblings, no?
Oh,
I mean, I know there was
yeah,
work to do on the farm, but she was probably more herself, maybe. Am I wrong?
well, yeah, true. I mean, all of my siblings obviously disliked me because I was a little more spoiled than they were. That happens. But I was a mama's boy, and I clung to her apron strings, you could say.
I bet literally you clung to her apron string.
She was a great cook.
Oh, okay. So tell us, I'm already getting hungry.
Yeah, so I mean, we had the traditional Sunday roast before we'd head off to church on a Sunday morning. My mum would pop that in the oven. It was traditional, a roast every Sunday, roast potatoes and vegetables, and of course, everything that we ate typically we grew. So all of our vegetables, we had a huge veggie lot. So there was very little things that we actually bought. And back in those
Nice.
days, there used to be an old van that used to drive around and it would have goodies inside and they would stop at each farm and actually sell so that you didn't have to go to town. And Mr. Fussell was his name. And he would pull up once a week and I'd go, give me candy. And mum would go, no, we're not doing candy. um, but, she was part of what's called the Country Women's Institute. And, that was a group of women who would come together and help each other and support each other. And they would do baking and take them to the local fairs. And my mother was always a winner. My dad and I used to get the offcuts, yeah, or the ones that weren't
Scraps
up to
sometimes,
were
or the little
pretty
drop on the
much.
floor.
Let's call them scraps. We would get that, but they were still beautiful. She was an amazing woman. Yeah, it really
So what
was.
was her mother like, your maternal grandmother? Did you know her? Did you know her?
Oh, Grandma Lizzie was incredible. I used to go and stay with Grandma Lizzie quite often. Thank you for bringing
Mm.
that up because it's a long time since I thought of her. We would wake up in the morning with overnight oats waiting to be cooked, and there was always porridge in the morning. My grandma was wow, yeah, she was an amazing lady, and there was always a cup of Milo or hot chocolate to go to bed with at night. And I remember my grandma used to sit on the side of her bed and she used to scratch her head like this all over for about 10 minutes. And she used to tell me this is a really good way to keep your hair and your head stimulated. And it's something that I still do today, which is you can see the hair's probably not worked so much on me, but she had a great head of hair.
No, but it can stimulate and maybe get the blood circulating. And she believed in it. So who cares if it,
Yeah,
right? That's pretty great.
yeah. She was wonderful.
So your mom's childhood, do you know much of that as a teen, what her relationship was like with her mom,
Oh,
Lizzie?
that was crazy. They had 11 children. This was like a
Mm.
soccer team, my grandma. And it was always a busy house. And it didn't matter even when they all grew up and got older. But they had a really close relationship before my grandmother passed. The four sisters took my grandmother on a cruise. And I still have photos of all of the sisters enjoying themselves. It was an Irish family. And they had a great life. I mean, a very, very tough life. Not easy in rural New Zealand, conservative, and a pretty tough life. Not a lot of technology and things like that, but they really made it work. They were a close knit family. One little story my grandmother, I remember, used to tell me. She said my children used to play up a lot on Sunday, and I would have to cook dinner. Sundays after church is always kind of a traditional time to eat a big meal. And she said I used to tie them to the balcony posts. She said I used to tie them up if they were annoying me, and I'd just leave them there until it was lunchtime. But it must have worked
Well, with
because
11, you
they
run
were
out
all
of
wonderful.
hands. You run out of hands, so you
Correct.
can't
Run
possibly.
and voice, run out of hands and voice,
Yeah.
I think.
But they had, your grandmother was raised on a farm. She lived on a farm in New
Yeah.
Zealand as well. So
Yeah.
you need a lot of hands, which is and that brings the family together. And it can also divide, right? There's always some tensions, especially between the older and the younger. So your mom, what did she do? Was she indulge in books or news, or was she an artist? Other than working all day long to get the farm and the land going and the cooking, what did she do with her free
Yeah.
time?
So my mum, I think, in the early years, she was a farmer, having grown up through the war and the Great Depression, etc. In the land army, that was where women looked after farms while the men were away fighting war. And she worked hard on the farm. But my mother had an amazing heart. She cared deeply for people. I think mum and dad may have not had the best relationship ever, but they were the best of friends. And my mother always ensured that, that my dad's clothes were clean, that there was food on the table, that there was always something there. And she loved people. Like, talking about her family, we would have, every few weekends there would be family gets-togethers where everybody came together. We would go
Yeah.
down the river and go swimming, and my mother would everybody would make salads and meat, and we'd have barbecue, and it was a real family feeling. But my mother cared deeply for people. She always looked after people. Yeah, from that point of view, Jackie.
And you mentioned the Land Army, which she was providing help and assistance in New Zealand. She did not go to Europe, to overseas. So you mentioned before we started recording that she was driving some of the heavy machinery and things like that.
Correct. I mean, that they drove the combines, they drove the tractors. My mum was even passed out to drive a vehicle the same as a tank. They learned to defend their country. When I really think about it, yes, my dad was the laborer on the farm, but my mother probably was the farmer, if that makes sense. She knew what to do. She'd done it all her life, and she worked so hard. I mean, she was out, moving the sheep and calling the dog, and doing everything, putting out the hay and things like that. So, they were a great team. But when I think about it now that you bring it up, I think my mum was probably the farmer and my dad was probably the laborer.
And you grew vegetables as well, or
Oh,
just
we had
raised animals?
probably almost half an acre, at least, maybe more, of vegetable patch. And we grew absolutely everything: peas and beans and carrots and potatoes, and absolutely everything. And on the farm, we had everything. We had, chickens and ducks and pigs and geese and cows, and we milk the cows and we eat the cows. Sheep, every kind of animal, cats and dogs. We had every kind of animal. So I had a really blessed upbringing from that perspective, but a little bit isolated. So yeah,
Right,
that was probably one challenge. Catch the school bus in the morning, make friends, and then kind of come home at night and do your chores. And the same in the
right.
weekends, I'd have to ride my bicycle on a gravel road just to go and play rugby, and things like that.
5 mile, 5 kilometers or whatever, as we used to say. We used to say, I had to walk 10 miles to school in the rain. No,
That was pretty much it. But we had a bus. We had a bus.
we're
We
in a
had
bus. That's good.
we had a wonderful bus driver called Grandma Dynamite. We used to call her Grandma Dynamite because she just drove like
A
so
bat out of
fast.
hell.
You could say that she was the loveliest lady off the bus, but you put her on a bus and she just became a demon behind that wheel. But she was
Wow.
gorgeous.
What wonder. It's like, I feel like I'm watching a movie. This is fantastic. So can I ask, did you going back to the farming, because this is fascinating
Yeah.
to me. Did you then can and pickle everything and store it
Oh
so you'd have
yeah.
it for the, so
Oh
that's
yeah.
another whole
Oh,
work.
mum used to do everything. We used to her family would all, because my dad's family a little different, but all of our family, we used to have a road trip for about 3 days, and we'd go down south and we'd apricots and pears and peaches and all of these things, and mum would bring them back, and have a big copper. She'd light the fire into the copper, and then she'd blanch them, and everything would go into glass jars, the agar jars, and we had food that would last us, well, if there was ever a nuclear war, we'd be around for another, 5 or 6 years,
Still there
basically. But
today.
pretty much. It was
Oh my
incredible.
gosh.
Beetroot and pickled onions and absolutely everything. We had jars and jars and jars in our shed. We had a shed out the back, and everything was in there. Freezers full of food and things like that. We could last.
Oh my gosh, this is so phenomenal. So she had that part of her brain where she was organized, like an executive and a director, but she also was very compassionate and had a big heart, your mom. So now
Because
I want to hear about that part and that turning point in your life when you spoke to her.
Yeah, so my mum, every time my mum and we went somewhere, she would always take a jar of something with her, or a tin of biscuits, or ginger kisses, or something, anything. And so there would always be, you'd never go somewhere without something, and she always kind of taught me that. and yeah, when I she lived an incredible life, but she lived very, very fast. This is a woman that you could come home at 4 o'clock in the morning, after being out for a night out, and should be up ironing clothes at 4 a.m. in the morning. She lived on little sleep, and she was always busy. And that took the toll on her health. She was a smoker, not really a drinker, but she ended up, when she had me, not long after she'd had me, she ended up with breast cancer, and they removed her breast, and they did radiation, etc. And it wasn't until that was around about 44 she was, and it wasn't until she was late 50s that the cancer came back. And when they found it, it had gone through and kind of into the spine, etc. And she was a really tough woman. She made a decision. I don't want chemotherapy. I don't want to hang around for an extra 6 months and be unwell and be, no hair and all the rest of it. She said, I've done what I need to do. And she was very, very happy with her life, which to me was like a little infuriating because, I wanted her to hang around for a little bit longer. So she was supposed to have passed by Christmas, and I was there at Christmas. Yeah, she was still going. She was a real battle axe, and so I had to go. I had to go and start a new job in the new year. So I had to leave just after Christmas and go to Wellington. And it was really tough leaving, but there was something that I really wanted to tell her, and that was that I was gay. And I'd known this for a long time, and I didn't think she knew it. So she essentially, to me, she was on her deathbed, and I had to go, and I didn't know if I'd see her again. So I spent the whole probably day and a half just wandering in and out and chit chatting and stuff like that. And every now and then I'd say, "Mum, I need to tell you something." And she's like, "Okay, yeah, what?" And then I go, "Oh, it's raining like crazy outside, right?"
Oh,
And it was really difficult. But I knew my auntie was coming to pick me up, and I ran out of time. So I said to my mum, "I really have to tell you something, and it's really difficult. I don't know how to tell you." And she said, "You've been trying to tell me all day." I said, "Yes, I know, but I don't know how to tell you." And she said to me, "You're a homosexual, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yes, Mum, but that's actually not how you say it. But yes, yes, you've got it right. It's a homosexual, darling." And she was like, "Oh, well, that's okay." And I'm like, "Really?" And this is a very conservative, religious, hardworking person. And she said, "Oh, that's okay." And I said, "Oh, really?" And she said, "Don't worry, I'll pray for you." And I'm like, "Mum, you don't need to pray for me. I'm okay. Save the prayers for yourself, right?" And and she said to me, "Are you happy?" And I said, "Yes, Mum, I am." And she said, "That's good. That's all I need." And I said, "That's good, but don't tell Dad." And she's like, "No, don't worry. He doesn't need to know yet." So, so with that, I was picked up. I was whisked off to the airport. My mother passed away on January the 17th, which was actually my father's birthday. She did it on purpose. She held out until it was his birthday so that he would never forget the day that she passed away. She's like that. She's like that. And my dad continued to live on until he was 89 years old. But yeah, I miss her, but I also know that she's still here. She's still here with me, and I do sometimes just ask and go, "Mum, what do you think? Do you think this? Do you think that?" And that helps. That helps me.
absolutely. And how long had you been, how many years or months or hours other than that day had you been wanting or thinking it was time to tell her?
Well, yeah, for a very long time. I guess I knew when I was maybe 6, 8 years old. I knew I was, different or not the same as other people, not necessarily different, but just not the same as other people. And I had no idea. It was so difficult being brought up in a Catholic church, being brought up in a conservative family. My mother was, head of she played golf, she played bowls, she was president of this and that, and my dad was the church gardener and things like that. So one of the big things was, and that was part of me going to Wellington, is that I wanted to tell them, but I didn't want the rest of the community to know or to look at them or to judge them. So it was a choice
for their
of
better
mine.
well-being, your
Correct.
parents to keep it private and personal.
Correct. So that was my choice to move and still love my family and still be part of that. But my mother was my mother was all of my family, not really any show of affection. I had a brother who was 19 when he was killed. I was 6, and I remember the police coming and things like that. But I never saw my mother cry for John passing until I turned 21, and I came back from the UK. We had a wonderful birthday party, and I hugged her the next morning, and I said to her, "Wow, at least you got one of your boys through to 21." The only time I think that I've ever seen my mother actually emotional and actually cry. So she was hard. She was hard to the core, and for me to come out to my mum, who was hard to the core, was hard, basically.
And
But
you would
again,
never have told, sorry, you would never have told your father first. It was always your relationship with your mom. That was
oh yeah,
most
yeah,
important.
yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Mm.
I love my dad. I love my dad. He's a very gentle man. He's a very kind man. He's very caring. He is. There's a little story if we've got time.
Sure.
When I was young, when it came to discipline, my father, if I did something wrong, my father would send me to a willow tree,
Mm.
which grow long sticks. He would send me to the willow tree and he'd tell me that I had to take a stick from the willow tree and take all the leaves off and bring it back to him, and he would beat me with it. And I'd like, that sounds scary, right? However, the amount of times that I actually got hit with that willow stick, I could probably count on one hand. And that was usually on the hand where he hit me. So he's a man who never ever hit me in anger. He always sent me away. He had time to calm down. Of course, I was terrified, and I could take as long as I liked to get the stick, but eventually I would have to come back and give it to him, not knowing if he was going to beat me with it or not. So he was an incredible man, and this is a man who obviously, fought in the Second World War and real action on anti-aircraft guns, etc. And he was an amazing man, but just somebody I feel that wouldn't have been able to handle it. However, when I did tell him 3-4 years later, he was like, "Ah, really? Okay, yeah, okay, all right, no worries."
Next.
Yeah, next, pretty much next. So it's yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's whether it's related to our sexuality or those personal things that we want to open up to the people significant in our life, that can be overwhelming, right? And you want to pick the right time and the right place. And sometimes it works out. In your case, speaking to your mom and your dad, they were fine, which is fantastic. And I'm so glad. And they're coming from a different era. The world has changed so much, and hopefully we will keep progressing in that direction. Um, was your mom a hugger? You said she cried once in her, so you never got any affection. Your father, good job, Josh. She got a medal,
Oh
or
yeah,
you?
yeah, yeah. Occasionally, my mum was always proud, and she was always proud of me. But she was, yeah, there was no like, jumping onto her lap or whatever. She was a hard woman. She was there to do the job, and the job was there to be done, and she was the person to do it.
She had to.
And
There's no,
yeah,
can't sit around and smoke cigarettes and watch soap operas.
Nope,
Not
there
when you
was
have
none of
a
that.
farm.
There was none of
Oh
that.
my goodness.
There was like, Josh, you go to bed. It's, the sun's going down. It's 7:30. You go to bed. You go to sleep. You wake up in the morning and don't get up in between time and don't annoy us. And it was, I guess, strict, but none
It's
of
what
that
you knew.
was
Yeah.
none of that was detrimental, I don't believe, to the person that I am or became.
Yeah. Pretty impressive. When you think of your mom and the gifts that she has given you, I like to ask my guests this, and I think you've shared quite a bit. What kind of gifts has she given you, your mom?
My mum gave me a lot of practical skills, a lot of life skills, and not only cooking and knitting and things like that. Um, she gave me the skills of being able to deal with people, and she showed me that caring for things, and not I'm not just talking about people. I'm talking about animals. I'm talking about the earth. I'm talking about growing, caring, actually caring for things and noticing and feeling and being aware. She taught me that that's important. It's important in so many different ways, to make you a good person. And this is not around religion. I left my religion, although I still say that I'm Christian and I have a belief. Um, but it was everything that she did. Everything that she did reminds me of the incredible person that she was. And I look at those examples and I think sometimes, what would mum do? What would mum do? Um, this is somebody who would go, oh, Mrs. Rogers is in hospital. We have to go and see her this week. I better cook her a cake. This woman's on her deathbed, right? And mum's making her a cream sponge, and she's like, oh, we got to get some strawberries, and I know she likes kiwi fruit, and things like that. This is a person who Mum was a person who knew everybody. She was so well connected and so well liked, and she knew what was going on. She was a terrible gossip, absolutely terrible. I've got to tell you a little story. We had a we had a landline at home. Sorry,
Oh
Jackie.
my gosh, it's okay.
We had a landline at home. So this was before the era of the dial
The rotary
phones.
phone.
Some of the younger viewers might even not know what that is. But this is where you had the crank on the side, right?
Oh,
So you'd have to ring and you'd have to, and you'd speak to the operator. Hello, Mabel, can you put me through to, 176, please, right? And then when they would, our number was 776, by the way. And when they would get that number, you would get a call. And that wouldn't be a normal ring, 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 ring like that. It would be like your number would be two shorts, ring, ring, and a long ring like that, right? And every house would have a different call sign. My mother didn't care. All right. Any call that came in, she would pick it up and she wouldn't say anything until somebody else said something. And then if there was somebody else, she would just put a hand over there. She knew everything that was going on. She knew
So she
everything.
would listen to everyone else's
Oh, yeah,
conversation. I'm sure
correct.
other people must have done the same thing. You think?
Well, probably, but it was just, and
Oh
she'd
my
go,
God.
shh. She'd go, shh, like that, and she'd put a hand over the receiver and she'd be listening in. Oh, do you know what Joan's been up to last? Did you hear about
Oh,
such? She was a wonderful gossip, but
oh my
that's
God.
what made her her. She was a character. I mean, she was a real
Right.
character.
She had a sense
Yeah.
of
So,
humor. She had a sense of
oh my
humor.
God. Oh my God.
Oh
And
my
and
God.
very Irish. You get all of their family together and you
Mm.
just sit around and you're entertained forever. The way they can tell a tale is amazing. Yeah.
What did you say to me? You can occasionally hear clip to the back of your head, a click to the back of your head when
Oh
you. So
yes.
what is the expression?
A clip on the back of the
A
head,
clip on the
which
back of
is
the head.
which
Smack. Wake
and
up. Get up.
and and seriously, sometimes when I'm doing things or whatever, and she does pop into my mind. That's not all the time, but when she does pop into the mind, I kind of go, probably end up with a clip on the back of the head for doing that or saying that or being that way or whatever. So she still guides me, and I think everybody still has connections to their mum in that way.
Absolutely. because a lot of what she respecting the land and taking care and nurturing, and not only respecting taking care of land, but being aware of the benefits of our engagement with the earth, with the soil, relying on the rain and the sun and the significance clearly has taken you to where you are today. And the Litter Club, I mean, the videos that you post on social media, the plastic that is gathered and all the trash. So now I would like you to give us a synopsis of what you do. And if I'm coming to Phuket, I'm going to come and volunteer with you. That's the first thing on the list. I should say
Well,
when I come.
when,
Yeah.
correct. My life has been, I've been incredibly blessed throughout my life. And I've been a project manager since I was mid-20s. And as a contractor and freelancer, I've worked in the US, I've worked in Japan, all the way throughout Southeast Asia, the UK. I've traveled to many, many countries for my work, and I look after in very big projects. I'm not blowing my own whistle, but I look after very big projects, and it's taken a toll on me. Even grandma's head scratching hasn't been able to keep the hair looking black. It's gone a bit grey. So it got to the end when I was working in Singapore around about COVID time, that I really felt that I'd had enough and I needed an escape to get outside. Now, I'd had my midlife crisis. Instead of buying a flash red car, I learned how to scuba dive, which I was absolutely terrified of, and actually became a scuba diving instructor. And one of the things I noticed in the 10 years of that happening was just more and more rubbish underneath the water. And I kind of got a little tired of taking people down to have a look at it. So I decided hey, why don't we start cleaning it up? So I did that. My project in Singapore, which was incredibly intense, I needed an out. And as you might be able to tell, that's why I've only got it to here. I'm not a gym person, a little bit of a bigger boy. And gym, I get a little bit bored walking the same path every day. So I decided that to get out of the corporate, I would shed my suit and I would put on a t-shirt and I'd go and pick up litter from the side of the reservoir in Singapore. Now, of course, every Singaporean and the beautiful clean city of Singapore said, who's the crazy old white guy down at the water picking up? We have people to do that. Are you okay? Do you need help? But seriously, within 3 months of doing it, it was my out. It was my release. Within 3 months of doing it, I had 30 people join me for a cleanup around the local area. That grew to, as we headed into COVID, that grew to over 300 volunteers joining me. I then moved to Thailand 4 years ago, exactly 4 years ago yesterday. And it's only in the last 8 months that I've kicked off the Litter Club here. We still do it in Singapore, but I've really kicked it off here because it's really needed. And I just decided it's time to do it. So the Litter Club, over its lifetime, in doing it Singapore, Malaysia, and in here, we've hosted over 6,500 employees. We've picked up over 50,000 kilograms of litter. We've done around about 300 registered cleanups, although lots more. And I love it. Now I'm kind of doing it full time. And the reason I love it is because I can show other people how much I love it, and then they love it too. And it's just about, for me, I studied conservation psychology. For me, it's about showing the same respect that you have for inside your own four walls for our shared spaces. We keep our houses looking clean and tidy and polished and all the rest of it. However, when we walk outside that front gate, maybe that feeling is a little bit different. And from a psychological perspective, it's true. And just increasing people's pride in their shared spaces, building community and bringing community together. And already here, we have a host community that we look after. We do some amazing stuff, even gardening and playing games with the kids and stuff like that. So for me, what I do is about community, and I've not thought of it before until this moment, but I think that's what my mum did. Yeah.
whether she was listening on other people's phone calls or bringing a cake to the
Oh,
hospital.
she was a bloody terror. She was an absolute terror. But she
Her
didn't
heart,
care
she had a good
because
heart.
she didn't care because she cared, right? She
Right.
didn't worry about other people. She just gave it, and that's what we do with the Litter Club. It doesn't worry me walking around in my t-shirt. I have my t-shirt on, walking around in my t-shirt in front of the locals or whatever, picking up litter and showing them what we do. I have no care because I care. All right.
Mm.
And then next minute I'm wandering along with my little picker in my bag, and I've got half a dozen little kids behind me going, "Hey, mister, what are you doing? Can we help you?" And they're picking up caps and they're putting things in my bag
And
with
it's
me and stuff like
fun. You
that.
make it fun. It's just
Oh,
people
we have a
getting
lot of fun.
together. Yeah.
We have a
Well,
lot
that's
of fun. So
wonderful.
it's about, I think it's about community, and that was a really nice thought. Thank you, Jackie. I'd not thought of it that way before, so I appreciate that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, Pattie sounds wonderful. I'm going to start talking to her every day now too.
You
See if I
can.
get the click on the.
Well, she will. She'll tell you a joke or two, and if you do something wrong, she'll be quick enough to just not. It's not hard, just so that you know. Oh,
Yep.
you know.
I'm here, and what you said, maybe not sort of okay. So people can find you Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Well, let's see.
Right.
Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube are the Litter Club Network.
Yeah,
Okay.
and everything, TikTok, everything is the Litter Club Network.
What's
No, it's
LinkedIn?
the same, the Litter Club Network.
Okay, so that makes it simple. Just look up the Litter Club Network and you'll find Josh O'Neill. I'm so glad we found each other. This has been really, really special. And
Same, Jackie.
and I really appreciate you doing all that you're doing. It's so important that we start taking care of Mother Nature. You know, you can only put so much in before she starts rejecting it.
I think one of the big things is it's the challenge is that young people nowadays, we are disconnected from nature compared to what we used to be. And I'm so blessed to have been connected to nature in such a intimate way when I was a kid. And I look at, I teach kids now here in Phuket. And, some of them just think that, chicken comes from the supermarket and, bananas come in a plastic bag and, these things. And I think, anybody who's got kids, just get them out of the city, get them out of the built up environment and get them into the natural environment. Just spend time, even if it is at the beach, etc. But show them where the beauty comes from. And it's seriously, it's not from a smartphone, it's not from a laptop, it's not from all of these things. The beauty, that's one-dimensional. Go and immerse yourself in it. Go and pick up some litter on a beach. Or
get your fingers dirty. Get your fingers, go in the dirt, feel it, feel the earth.
Yeah. Make a mud pie.
Exactly.
My mother used to hate when I'd make mud pies. What did you do today? I made 2 mud pies. And she'd look at me and go, "Oh, yeah, I've got a whole lot of washing to do tonight."
Oh, my gosh, what a riot. I could talk to you forever. Thank you, Josh O'Neill. You made my day.
Thanks, Jackie. Thank you so much.
What a pleasure. The Litter Club Network. Make sure you check it out. Thank you again for joining me. And we will be back with another episode of Should Have Listened to My Mother. Thank you.